Can you hear me now? Mo.
Yes.
Perfect. Thank you. Technology is wonderful. Welcome to Asparagusapalooza. Today we are going to do 3, not 1, not 2, but 3 versions of asparagus. 1 soup, 1 grilled, 1 bacon wrapped, because you got to wrap things in bacon. And the first thing to do is... yes, Shining Stark, that's exactly what I was doing. You found me out. This was all a test. For those playing the home game, that's the website. My blog, if you will. My super universal basic bread / bun recipe is found there. My asparagus soup, if anyone's going to run out and buy a couple of pounds of asparagus, is there. And then as far as the bacon wrapped and the grilled, you take asparagus, you wrap it in bacon, you pop it in the oven at 350, you flip it over once after 15-ish minutes. And for the pan fried, it's about 10 minutes on medium-high heat. But we'll go over all of that. And as usual, as always, if there's any questions, feel free to bombard me in the chat. Or if you live nearby, yell really, really loudly. Maybe I'll hear you. Is the music too loud?
Can't hear it on the actual...
Apparently we can't hear the music at all on the stream. I'm going to go make a quick adjustment on the Mixatron and get this show on the road. What I'm going to do is just heat up some cream. Yeah, I don't hear it on the stream either. I'm going to go adjust that right now. So the first step in the bread recipe is to take some milk and scald it, which just means bring it up to about 100-195 Fahrenheit and let it cool down. I like using 10% cream, just because. So I'm just going to start heating this up while I go and monkey around with the audio levels. So hang tight just a minute. Yeah, I should be good, but the music is super quiet. So I'm going to go make an adjustment on that. You shouldn't have me on full blast. That's dangerous. That's dangerous. Someone's living on the edge. I'm going to mute myself for just a minute. And I'm going to go see if I can adjust the audio. Now, let's see if we can hear it and me. Do we hear the music? Do we hear me? I mean, it's not the worst thing if you don't hear me. Perfect. Perfect. I'm a little confused with the mixer on OBS, but here we are. We're just going to use our imagination and pretend that this laser pointer, this very glorified laser pointer, is actually a stick thermometer. And I'm going to check the temperature on the milk, on the cream that's heating up. I want to stop it at about 190 and then let it cool down to about 110, 115. If we go much above 115, we risk damaging the yeast. And the reason I want to get started on the bread right away is because it needs to rise for about an hour and a half. We've got lots of time on the stream today. And I don't know, I'm still tempted to make an asparagus ice cream. Because doesn't it just sound super appetizing? Get all that asparagus-y goodness with the sweet, creamy, luxurious mouthfeel of ice cream. Isn't it a lifelong goal of everyone watching the stream to incorporate both the health benefits of asparagus with the raw decadence of good ice cream? I could make like an asparagus custard and go like all sorts of French ice cream on this one too. Oh, Mariah Cat, yeah, I don't have any control over the category. And since there's music in the background, I don't know. Good enough for me. A stand-up comedy, that is definitely not me. But music talk, well, we're talking about music, and we are doing cooking, and I am IRL, I guess. You can use, like, avocado is used in a lot of recipes as a cream fat substitute. Like I've seen a lot of recipes for brownies with avocado instead of butter. And as weird or as gross as it might sound or seem, avocado itself is a very neutral tasting fruit, and it mashes up very well. And if you think about the properties of avocado, properly ripened avocado, it's easy to picture it being used as butter. Once you get past that guacamole connection, you know, because who wants to make their brownies out of guacamole? Probably nobody. Now I want guacamole, that's right. So the milk is up to temperature. I'm just gonna take it off the element, let it cool down. Just gonna zap it with my gun. Huzzah! And in the meantime, I'm going to get my, my camera should be autofocused. Autofocused right there, perfect. So as some of you may or may not know, I'm back on Team Keto. So the bread is not for me. I'm making some buns today. What I'm going to do is just do a half batch. So once again, we're following along that recipe. Since I'm using instant yeast, not active dry yeast, I don't have to activate the yeast. I'm just going to throw it in to the bowl with the rest of the ingredients. Half a tablespoon is 1.5 teaspoons because of math, fractions. I bought a pound of instant yeast at Costco for like, it was under $6 Canadian, so you know, $4.75 US, give or take. This is gonna last me a heck of a long time. So the rest is in the freezer of all places. What kind of bread am I making? I am making just a regular white bread. It's a touch sweet, and nobody complains about their dinner rolls being a little sweet. So to give the yeast something to eat, normally I'd use 1 tablespoon of sugar for a full batch. This recipe I normally go with 3 tablespoons, just to give it a little more sweetness. To do a proper sourdough, I need to be cultivating my own sourdough starter. don't believe that I will be making sourdough nearly often enough to justify the effort in feeding the starter regularly. The best way to make a sourdough bread is you keep some active starter alive in your pantry, and you have to feed it or it'll starve. It's like a Tamagotchi, but food. And for those of you who don't know what a Tamagotchi is, shame on you. You need a little bit of salt, a little bit of baking powder. Not bacon powder, baking powder. Again, if you're playing the home game, this is a very, very straightforward recipe. And you've probably seen me make bread. I think in the last year on stream, I've made bread like 6 or 7 times now. This is a core skill. Everybody really should learn how to make bread. And every time I go to bake, I'm reminded more and more of how bad of a misconception it is that you have to be super precise with your measurements for baking. That's true for pastries. When you're baking a cake or a pie or cookies, there's a lot of wiggle room. There's a lot of wiggle room. When you're making bread, you got all the wiggle room. And I need to give my kitchen fairies a shout out for doing a fantastic job of cleaning up the place. Go kitchen fairies. What I like to do to speed up the cooling process for the scalded milk is add some cold water, which will help quickly bring the temperature down to something in a range that won't kill the yeast. And if you do happen to get a little bit of a skin forming on your milk or your cream like I did here, I'm just going to scoop this up and throw it out. I can whisk this in and reincorporate everything, but good enough. There's my liquid again. I'm using instant yeast, which means I don't need to worry about activating it. If I was going to activate it in the bowl, I would just have the warm liquid, the sugar, and the yeast, and I'd let it hang out for 10-15 minutes until it doubles in size. I have this nice foamy cap happening. And then I start adding the rest of the ingredients. Yeah, Mariah Cat, we all like baking powder too. Every last one of us. So I need half a tablespoon of oil, give or take. I'm just going to very, very, very precisely measure my half tablespoon. That's real Greek olive oil, straight from Greekopolis. And I need one and a half cups of flour. And normally I'd crack the joke about how are you spelling flour, but in a printed format, the joke just isn't funny. But I have learned something about comedy in the last few years. The more you explain a joke, the funnier it gets. Just work with me on this one. Next time you crack a joke and it kind of bombs, just keep re-explaining it and make sure that your audience really appreciates just how funny it is and why it's funny. Because the more you explain it, the deeper of an appreciation people will have for the comedic genius that is, you in action. I'm going to get 1.5 cups of flour. There's 1 cup. There's half a cup, and then for me, I'm just going to keep a little bit of flour off to the side. I'm going to flour my hands and very, very vigorously scrub, especially the back of my paws here, exfoliate any fur that might fall into the dough. And I want to keep a little bit of, yeah, bear hair, we don't want that. And I want to keep a little bit of flour around for later for dusting the work surface, so I have something flour to work with, so I can roll out the dough. And without further ado, I'm just going to start scrubbing things up. Now there are some interesting things that we can do with the liquid and the flour. We can put in extra liquid and let this just hang out for a while. And the liquid itself will help break down the proteins in the flour. The proteins that are more that aren't connected with strong bonds will break apart in the water, and then the dough will actually start kneading itself, which is kind of interesting. The upside is less work for you. The downside is you get a more wet mash, which is a little annoying to work with later. I do like the end result though. I'm still not sure which, for me personally, the best way to make bread is. I'm just going to stick with this recipe because this is what I've used for decades. I like it. I'm very familiar with it. I'm comfy with how it works. Nobody complains about it. But I have tried using a little more water, and I do like the finished product. It's just that second last step that I'm not completely sold on. Overall, it takes a little more time too. And my long-term viewers will know just how much I really hate getting my hands dirty. And here's where I'm gonna throw in the obligatory comment about, yeah, I should be wearing gloves here. Can't really justify the expense. I really hate wearing latex gloves. It's just us. If I was doing this in a commercial kitchen, it would be very different. I'd be yelling at people to do this. Okay, time to get my hands dirty. Everyone's got a thing. This is mine. Well, one of them. So make sure this is centered. Centered. When you're kneading your dough, don't compensate. Don't try adjusting your amount of flour or water right away. Don't jump back and forth. Just keep kneading it for an extra 2 minutes. If you're absolutely convinced that it's too dry, that the dough itself is too dry, add less than a tablespoon of hot water, and then knead the heck out of it for 2 minutes, at least, before you even think about making any adjustments. If it's too wet, you can add a little more flour. Just sprinkle a tablespoon or so. And again, knead the heck out of it and make sure that it's fully incorporated for at least 2 minutes before you think about making any adjustments. If it's too wet, you can just keep kneading it, and the extra liquid will evaporate. But if you're constantly making adjustments, adding more water, adding more flour, more water, more flour, your finished product is not going to be nearly as good as it should be. And I mean taken to an extreme. Like if you end up adding an extra half cup of flour and a quarter cup of water, your ratios are going to be off by probably enough that the bread's going to be not as sweet as you're expecting, or rise as much as you want as quickly because of the ratio of active yeast to dough. Any questions? Everything's good so far? This is going to look like a small batch because it is just a half batch. This is going to make like half a dozen buns. So it's going to be a couple of buns for the incomparable Mademoiselle Nouveau, and whoever wants to drop by and grab some buns later tonight. If you're in the Winnipeg area and want to be part of the studio audience, send a self-addressed stamped envelope to the Vlahos, care of the Vlahos. I'm not kidding. If you are in the Winnipeg area, I'd love to have you over. It would be awesome. I do think that this is a touch dry. So I'm going to throw in just a splash of hot water. That teaspoon of water is going to go a heck of a long way, as you'll see right away. It's going to wipe up whatever's on the side of the bowl. I don't know if you can hear that wet, squishy sound. I do like taking the bread and just turning it inside out, just to make sure things incorporate a little faster. Otherwise, just push down, pick up one side, fold it over, push down, and that's how the kneading works. But if you pick up the dough itself and just rip it in bits, it might be a little dry, it might be a little wet on the inside. You can use this to just wipe down the bowl. All roads lead to Rome. Let's get centered again. So this dough is just about ready. You know it's ready when it comes clean off the side of the bowl. When it's soft, maybe a little sticky, still pliable. When you form it into a ball, if you're seeing a lot of creases, if you're seeing a lot of folds that you can't work out, you might want to add just a touch more liquid and keep kneading it. Again, my long-term viewers know just how often I complain about it being super dry in here. It's super dry in here. This is good enough. I'm just going to add a splash of water though. I'm just going to knead this for another couple of minutes. And by a splash of water, I mean that was maybe a quarter, half a teaspoon of water tops, maybe less. Just like with most recipes, first time you make something, follow the instructions to the letter as best as you can. Second time, make your adjustments. Third time, you should be pretty much settled. Make sure you keep using the same ingredients, same name brand of flour, same everything you can, just for the consistency. If at all possible. So one of the many reasons you should constantly be tasting your food, making adjustments as needed. And once you understand your recipe and how your ingredients work, then you can play around with the recipe and make your changes. But the first time, you should leave that alone. Hang on just 1 second. Terribly sorry about that. Okay, this is good. This is good. So what I'm going to do from here. See, this is not at all sticky. If it's a little sticky, that's okay. But this is nice and clean. Nice fluffy texture. I'm going to give this a quick spritz of oil. A lot of recipes will call for just putting in like a teaspoon up to a tablespoon of oil and then rolling the ball around. The whole point of that is just to get a coat of oil over the ball, and as the ball expands from the yeast, that thin layer of oil can still spread and keep the moisture locked in. We can do that with our cooking spray. And to make doubly sure that we keep the moisture locked in, I'm going to take some cling wrap. A lot of the older, more traditional recipes will say to use like a tea towel or a cloth, cover this and put it in a draft-free environment. What that does is it stops the moisture from escaping. If it's in a drafty environment, the holes in the tea cloth will still allow the moisture to be sucked up by convection, Venturi effect, whatever. It'll dry out the dough. So the oil is going to keep the moisture locked into place. The cling wrap is just overkill. I'm putting this in a warm area, which is my oven with the light on. The oven was a little warm earlier. It's going to stay just a little warm. And we're going to leave this in until it doubles in size. Take a good look at about how big that is. It's like softball sized. And in an hour and a half, it's going to be significantly bigger. Attack of the kitchen. Don't mind me just washing off the mittens. The real irony is I know how clean my hands get when the dough is done. My hands are pretty clean, and I don't know why, but I still have this aversion to getting my hands into wet dough. I don't know, I just don't like it. I just don't like it. But next we're going to get to the asparagus. And again, for all the eager beavers playing the home game, there's the recipe for the cream of asparagus soup. If you haven't done so already, please share the link for today's stream. Let all your super awesome friends know that we're live and that Papa Shock is done. I'm on now. Sudeep is on after, and man of the hour, man of the day. Man in Philly still. Shock will be taking over later. Here is the asparagus. I can't remember if this is always washed prior to use. Can you get a bowl? When you're trimming your asparagus, there's two main school of thoughts. One is you just chop off 2 inches from the bottom and that's good enough, or the other one is you snap where it breaks, but this is too fibrous, you don't want to use this, you want to stick with this. If you really want, you can keep this around and do something interesting with it. You can poach it and then puree it. You can grill it just for some flavor. You can trying to think of a joke that won't get everyone into trouble. Yeah, you can cook this. You can make a vegetable stock, actually broth, but whatever. You can make a vegetable soup with this. So you can get some more flavor out of it. Today, I really don't care. Again, snap it off where it naturally breaks. This piece seemed like it was pretty far out, but the next separation was at this point, and this is really, really fibrous. It's going to be very firm. And woody, and that's not what we want. This ain't Toy Story, baby. Sorry, that's all I could think of. That was terrible. I know it seems like a bit of a waste, kind of is, but it's the trade-off of, do you want your food to taste extra good or do you want to be extra frugal? Now for the asparagus. Ooh. That one was crazy. But I can barely bend this one. Yeah, that one was snapping like a snap pea. Weird. I'm going to keep a couple of these tips for later, just for garnish. Okay. 2, 3, 4, 6. Okay. Again, there is some use for these pieces. I'm just going to throw these out. Could compost it. My sister, aka Compostorella, was here earlier. She's not going to be by for quite some time. I don't want these stinking up my kitchen, so I'm not going to feel too badly about those hitting the landfill, because it is green. I'm going to give all of these a wash, but first, the reason I'm keeping these spears aside is because I just want the tips. John 041, yeah, they do make a nice puree, but I'm already making an asparagus puree soup. I'm making cream of asparagus, so yeah, it is a little wasteful. It is. But here we are. What I want to do is just chop off like 3 tips per bowl of soup that I'm going to make. So here's 6. And I'm going to, right at the end, I'm going to, yeah, with my friend out on the west coast in Canada, we have to be careful with throwing out recyclables, because the building / the tenants would get in all sorts of trouble if the wrong things were put in the wrong bin. We don't have a section for composting here in Manitoba yet, and the local dump and the waste collection people, they've been pretty clear that they don't care if we throw like lawn clippings in with our normal trash, because there's a hill where all the non-metallic garbage gets dumped, and they don't mind the extra free composting. If you bring your own biomatter, you can dump it for free, but we don't have a collection service for it yet. So right now all we have is our blue bins for normal recycling. We don't even do styrofoam as far as I know. And then a normal garbage. I think the garbage, there was a garbage hill inside of city limits that's been, they let it grow over. Now it's a tobogganing hill for the winter. And the area doesn't smell bad. Significantly sized hill. The current garbage dump is, it's like a 5-minute drive southwest of here. On a really, really windy, really hot summer day with the winds coming just in the right direction, you can sometimes catch a whiff of the marvels of decomposition. Anyways, I'm going to give these a really good rinse and store them in this cup. And then I'm going to give this bowl a really good rinse. And then we're going to start making some soup. So these, like I said, this is garnish, these spear tips. They're going to be boiled for 2 minutes or so right before the soup gets served. And it's strictly for garnish, and it's going to look really, really, really pretty. Apparently I'm really pretty. This other batch of asparagus, this is about a pound. This is going to get, some of this will be grilled up and some of this will be wrapped in bacon. Woo, which we'll do later. If there's a local bylaw or law that I'm violating, please let me know. And don't let what I say, don't blame me for you breaking the law. Please and thanks. Moose and squirrel is right. At some point today, I'm going to break out my immersion blender, thusly called because you immerse this in your liquid that you're going to blend up. Immersion blender. If you don't have one of these, and I'm not going to recommend that you run out and buy one. I kind of have like an anti-gadget philosophy. I have a lot of uses for this, so I broke down and I bought one earlier this year, late last year. If you don't have one of these, you probably have a blender, and then which means at some point you're going to need to take your cooked asparagus with some broth mixture and puree it in your blender. Whenever you take hot liquids, hot anything, and you blend it up, make sure there's a ton of room, because when you blend up hot things, they have a tendency of exploding. And if you're not holding down that lid for dear life, you're going to get asparagus stucco all over the place. So be a little careful, be very careful, beware when you're blending hot things, especially hot liquids. Terribly sorry about that. Terribly sorry. I hit the wrong button. My throat's really dry. It's really dry in here, and I'm going to hydrate right now. Cheers again. If you don't mind, remind me every like 2 minutes to drink some water. Or take a shot of something. Like water. Cheers. Okay, so I need some butter in this pan. about 2 tablespoons. I need a couple of cloves of garlic. I need a couple pieces of onion. If I don't have onion, too bad. I'm going to do my garlic peeling hack. Make sure this is centered. If you take a glass jar, and that garlic's sprouting, just less than ideal. I don't hide stuff. If there's something wrong with my ingredients or something I did, I will draw attention to it. I'm not going to cover anything. So if I screw something up and I catch it, you'll be the second ones to know about it. So you take your glass, something where when the garlic cloves bounce around will help break the paper off. And like magic, basically peeled garlic. The advantage of doing this, you're not prying off the stems with your nails, getting garlic juice underneath. Now, the reality is, I'm still going to trim the ends off, which I could have done in the first place. The real reason why I do this is when I have a whole bulb of garlic, it helps break everything up. I shake the cloves out, and I pick up the cloves without the extra paper, throw them back in. It just speeds up the peeling process. At the same time, you know what, I'll show you how this looks normally. Show me, don't tell me. You can take the end, cut most of the way towards the bottom on both sides, on both ends, and now I can pop this top off. Paper should come down with it. Pop the bottom off, and then all of this peels off nicely. Was there any point in shaking this up in the glass jar when I'm going to do this anyways? Not really. But if I have a whole bulb, I like breaking up the jar. And there seems to be a bit of a negative stigma about using a shake weight, so it's the next best thing. You can incorporate it into your Gothercise routine. See what I did there? It's very clever. Yeah, Casper's Cloud, like, I actually like when things go wrong on my stream, because if everything was perfect, like TV Magic Land, where everything's prepped for me and I put something in the oven and I magically pull out the cooked product, no one's going to see what to do when the mistakes happen. Like the second last time and the third last time that I made mayo on the stream, I think one of those I intentionally screwed up and the other time it just happened to screw up, which was really good both times because I got to demonstrate how to salvage your mayonnaise. And the first time when it didn't work, it was a complete failure. And I had to work really, really hard to fix the mayonnaise. And I went through all of the steps, and I could have just hit it off to the side because nobody saw the consistency. I had to draw attention to it. And why would I do that? So you can see what to do when things go wrong. Because if everything goes perfectly according to plan, where's the fun in that? Let me give the garlic a little whack here. All this does is help break up the fibers. I use the claw technique, which is fingers curved and the flat end of the knife is guided by the curve, and the business end of the knife stays away from the business end of my fingers. When these mix, it turns red. I don't like that combination. I'm going to give these just a quick little chop. One with the grain. The most important one is across the grain. This is just going to mince it up. This is going to get pureed anyways, so this isn't super important to get a really fine mince. But once you have your garlic roughly like this, you can just put the tip of your knife on the board, hold it in place, and then just up and down. Nice and safe, nice and easy. When you're doing something dangerous like putting your fingers on the blade, always go in the direction. If there's any resistance, stop doing what you're doing. Because if you're pushing hard and then that resistance lets go, a lot of people's reflex is to pull back. So if I'm pushing hard because there's something stuck on the blade and I overcome that resistance, it's natural for me to pull back. And pulling back while I'm pushing down with the knife is a really, really easy way to go chop into my fingers. And again, it lets that red stuff out that's supposed to stay on the inside. I could mince this up to basically a powder, but I don't need to. And use a counter scraper, like a silicone scraper or a metal scraper of some sort to scrape up your stuff. Don't use a knife like I do. Just please don't. Don't do what Donnie Don't does. If you use your knife as a scraper, it will dull the edge. And that's the biggest reason not to do it. That, and I don't want to get nylon shavings into my food. It's not as tasty as it sounds. Just going to quickly see if I have any onion in the fridge. If I don't,
Onion.
we're going to skip that.
There's onion there.
If I have,
By the toaster oven.
yeah, I could use one of. Do you want me to use one of these?
I don't know.
Okay, fine. If you insist.
What's the difference?
I didn't know DJ Nuvo really loved onions as much as she does, but apparently she's like quite the onionophile. I think it's time to hydrate. It's been a couple of minutes. Opa is right.
I can smell that onion over here.
If I could do the Austin Powers accent, I'd ask if it was making you interested. I don't even know what words I'm allowed to say anymore. This is weird. I miss high school. I'm just peeling the outermost layer of the onion. I want to use about half of this onion. So there's a few ways that I can mince this up. Again, this is going to get pureed blender style in the pan itself, so I don't need to be super duper careful. But what I am going to do is chop halfway into the onion. I could have made cuts perpendicular, but this is going to be more than good enough. I do have a number of videos on my channel. I'm trying to remember if I linked them individually or if it was just a medley. I will be posting my videos on how to chop up garlic, how to chop up onions, how to peel potatoes and apples. There might have been another thing in there for peeling or chopping technique. It's a series of quick, they're like 2 to 5 minutes long, and I will put them up in the highlights sometime this week. I know that I put together the compilation because I had to kill an hour of time while I was hosting a charity meeting. Shh, while I was streaming, shh, don't tell my viewers, shh, nobody noticed. One question I get asked fairly frequently is, how do I stop eyes from watering while cutting onions? You can do it under running water. Celador, I'm good. My throat's just really, really dry. And I need to be reminded constantly to drink water. Cheers. The weather is being fairly erratic, so the arthritis itself isn't really, the pain isn't really there, which is very noticeable from last week. I do gargle with water. I should gargle with, I think, ouzo or bourbon or something in a few minutes. Woo, drunken chef. It's more my neck and my hip just physically not cooperating because of the physical inflammation from drastic changes in the barometric pressure. One day they will make me better. One day they will invest $6 million into fixing me. And I will be the $6 million Twitcher. So we have like half an onion. I have a couple of cloves of minced garlic, some butter. What I'm going to do is just heat the onions and the garlic on medium-low heat. If you're playing the home game, the specific instructions are in a heavy bottom pot. Melt the butter on medium heat, medium-low if using onion. Step 2, lower the heat. Cook the optional onions for 5 minutes or until soft. One thing I've noticed over the last couple of years is transhumanism. Yeah, pretty much. Pretty much. One thing I've noticed is people will describe cooking onion as heat it or fry it until fragrant, which once you make the connection between your eyes, snout, and what's happening in the pan, it makes so much sense. Because there is a point when you're frying garlic where you just get smacked all over the place with just the release of flavor. Like, it really does release the flavor. So when the recipe calls for do something with garlic until fragrant, you know when it's fragrant. You know when you have that beautiful garlic smell all over the place. Instead of saying cook it until translucent or, you know, lightly brown it.
Or sweat it.
Or sweat it, yeah. Like those terms are... they're not quite as descriptive as the until fragrant, for me anyways. Like, for me, it just really resonates. Makes a lot of sense. So once this stuff is sizzling a little bit, the rest of the recipe is really straightforward. Oh, and while that's happening, what I should do, and what I'm going to do, food time. What do you mean food time? I'm going to chop the asparagus into about 1-inch pieces, give or take. I really hate chopping into the tips, just because I know how pretty they are for a garnish later. But this is all going to get cooked and get turned into a beautiful puree. And if you're noticing, especially if you're playing the home game, always, 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 claw technique. 1 inch, hands the guide. I'm going to move the whole assembly down about an inch. I'm going to hold the asparagus in place, use my knuckles as a guide, so the blade of the knife is never risking cutting my hands or my fingers. Yeah, Rude Girly, it's I like asparagus too. I don't mind the weird smells that happen from eating asparagus. It really throws some people off. Yeah, I'm a fan. I like me some asparagus. Time to hydrate some more. Boba. Yes, it does make it's rumored to make some people pee smell weird. Pretty sure it's everybody. I remember the first time that I noticed what happened to my digestive process after eating a lot of beets. It kind of freaked me out the first time I glanced in the bowl. I'm like, oh my god, what's wrong? And if you've had beets, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Yeah, and if you're... I don't know how many people get like blackout drunk and go on a beet eating spree. They binge eating beets when they're totally wasted, but makes for a terrifying morning, I'll tell you. I mean, not that I know from personal experience, just, you know, imagining what happens if somebody drinks way too much and then they go eat a couple of pounds of beets and then they go to pee in the morning and sheer terror. Licorice, what about licorice? Oh yeah. I don't eat. I don't remember ever eating enough licorice to turn my poop green, but I have heard that.
Black Jello.
One of these days on one of the streams I have to do, like, I hate to say masterclass because it's been done to death. I want to do a deep dive into the differences between cooking with butter and the different oils and when to use which, and why you should never ever fry things in extra virgin olive oil, because you shouldn't. I mean, even frying things in butter is kind of... It's actually a little tricky. It's easy to burn. It's easy to have the butter turn brown. You're better off using clarified butter or ghee. Just because it has a slightly higher smoke point. You know, I think I will do that when I do my cast iron pan seasoning, because I had there's a lot of overlap in the concept. That's a heck of an idea. Thanks to whoever gave me that, sparked that idea. That's a heck of a good idea. No, it wasn't me. It was someone else. I don't like taking credit for ideas, because if the idea turns out to be stupid, then it's not mine. And if it turns out to be great, someone out there is going to think it was them that helped, and they're going to feel good about themselves. It's a win-win. I don't feel stupid, and someone else feels good. What could be better? I should rephrase that. I feel less stupid. How's that? Okay. So the onions are fragrant. The garlic is fragrant. Everything's nice and fragrant. I want to dab some behind the ears and go on the prowl. See how successful I am. What do you mean none of that? Apparently I'm in trouble. I'll show you what this looks like. The garlic is already starting to turn brown. The butter is starting to turn a little brown. The heat is just a touch lower than medium. If I cook this for another minute, I think the butter would start to approach that burning area. And we don't want that. So from here, I'm going to throw in the roughly 2 pounds of trimmed asparagus. It's a little less, but I won't tell if you don't tell. So that's what the asparagus looks like. I'm going to add some salt and pepper. I'm going to just keep stirring this around for about 5 minutes, and then I'm going to add a few cups of broth. And then we get to the fun bits. Oh yeah, like Mariah Cat, it always smells. And thanks for tuning in. You know, you and Ignatz, you guys are awesome. Thank you. I appreciate the eyeballs and the support, and the posts on the Discord, and the super cute kitties, and the doggos, and you know, everything else. So I need about half a teaspoon of salt and pepper. Threw in some freshly ground poivre noir. Not to be confused with Dracar Noir. Do not put Dracar Noir in your asparagus soup. As cool and sexy as you think it might make it, you're wrong. That's my public service announcement for the day. Do not confuse Dracar Noir with anything else for cooking. In theory, we could get a little bit of liquid out of the asparagus. It's probably not going to burn, but just keep stirring it anyways. I'm just adding the close to 2 pounds. It's going to lower the temperature of the pot. Just keep the temperature the same. Like right now, mine's just a touch under medium. It's going to come up in temperature. As long as I keep stirring it, nothing should burn. I'm just going to pan fry this for about 5 minutes while I could add bacon. Yeah, I absolutely could add bacon.
You use that bacon leaf garnish.
Mariah Cat, just for you. I just so happen to have some bacon weave lying around. I don't know. What are the odds? So for flavor, for a bit of fat, for a bit of everything else, I'm just going to chop this up into little bits, and I'm just going to throw it in. See, if I add it before I puree it, I'm going to get the bacon flavor without any bacon crunch, because this is a little dry now. So I don't see a problem with that. Yeah, let's do that. Let's throw some bacon in here. How much bacon are we going to put in? All the bacon? Some of the bacon? This weave is a few days old, and it's still flexible. That's why I love me bacon weaves. This is why everyone should weave bacon. All the bacon, I love it. And I should probably be cutting this with a cleaver, which tells me that this knife needs to be sharpened. Yikes. Look at these beautiful bacon sticks. The horrible politics, like what? Bacon? Come on. Bacon's a religion, it's not a political party. As if it was a political party, it would win. Well, a lot of votes anyways. I'd vote for the Bacon Party. Not to get too political. So this is about 4 strips of bacon. Again, I could chop into this, turn this more to bacon bits, but this is going to get pureed anyways. That's what it looks like. Oh, I love the color once you start cooking for. Yeah, I'll let turkey bacon slide once in a while. I just like the how bright asparagus gets when you start cooking it. I don't know if it's my artsy side showing through.
Oh, Brussels sprouts do that too.
Yeah, Brussels sprouts do that too. And I love me some Brussels sprouts and bacon. And sometimes just hold the Brussels. Just sprouted bacon. Straight off the bacon tree. I need about 3 cups of chicken broth. Made with real chicken.
Good.
Well, that's convenient. Recipe calls for 3 cups. So I'm just going to throw 3 cups into the asparagus. It's starting to brown just a little bit. One cup. 2 cups. Now, since I didn't use the full 2 pounds worth of asparagus, I'm just going to use a little bit less chicken broth. I know from eyeballing it, I was using like 2/3-ish of the bag of asparagus, so I should use about 2/3 of the rest of the ingredients. Yeah, Mariah Cat, that's a good point. I think the only real point to turkey bacon in general is that you're not eating pork. So you can have kosher or halal bacon flavor. And that's about it. I mean, it's going to be a little more lean. The calories should be a little less just because of the concentration of fat. Yeah. If it were up to me and I was watching calories, I would cut out half a piece of bread to have extra bacon. That's just me. Yeah, one of my buddies, he went on quite the weight loss kick, and I think he saw this from some videos where they did the comparison. I think Noom actually uses these comparisons. I could be wrong on that. If somebody's on the Noom plan, let me know if this is accurate. But it's something like you compare like 4 to 6 ounce chicken breast with 100 calories of basic garbage. What's more filling? What are you actually going to enjoy eating more? The seasoned chicken breast or a piece of bread with butter? I mean, for some people that's a close call. But like half a banana or some roast chicken breast. What do you think's going to be more satisfying? What's going to keep you full longer? What's probably better for you? The chicken breast, right? I think the idea is once you make those substitutions, once you make those connections, that instead of this, one bite of stuff that I'm gonna like a little bit but not a whole lot, versus something that I know is gonna be a lot more satisfying and just so happens to be a lot better for me, it's easy to start making those minor changes. Yeah, eat more chicken. I know. If chicken was a little more affordable, I would be eating a fair bit more chicken. But as it is, my protein of choice is egg and powder. Okay, so the asparagus soup is starting to do its thing. I need to let this come up to a simmer. So I'm going to turn up the heat, and then I need to let it simmer for about 10-15 minutes. And then I get to blend it up. What else should I do? I'm going to get the asparagus tips ready to go. So I'm just going to get a cup of water in here. And I just want to boil the asparagus tips for 3 to 4 minutes just to soften them up. And I've always found that the best way to start things boiling is in my kettle. I'm just going to pour the cup of boiling water into this with a little bit of salt. By this I mean this little pot. Just going to put a big pinch of salt, like a 1/4 teaspoon. 1/4 teaspoon. And this is going to be the last step. It's going to boil for 3 to 4 minutes until the tips are tender, and that's what's going to be used to garnish the soup. Ooh, that smells lovely. Okay, so I raised the temperature, brought it up to a boil. I'm going to lower the temperature to like medium low and let it simmer for another 10 minutes. Smells fantastic. Did I completely smoke the camera? I think I did. While we're waiting, I'm going to take a quick look at the dough. Let's see how much it's risen. That's almost done, actually. That's more than doubled in size. I'm going to leave this alone for another few minutes. Yeah. We got lots of time for that. Today we're not going to end up with all of the ingredients, the subcomponents coming out at the same time. I'm going to do the soup first. Unfortunately, no bread to go with it, but it'll be plated up and it's going to look fine. And then I will pan fry and then bake the asparagus. Actually, I think I'm going to do the buns next, and then I will bake and then pan fry. So that'll take us up to 3 hours, and then Sadiq's going to take over. about 1 cup of water. That's on a small element on my stove top. I'm going to just let it stay heated up until I'm closer to blending up the asparagus soup. I'm going to get a bowl ready just for the finished product. There's a few things to watch out for when you use the immersion blender. If your pot isn't deep enough, like I'd be better off using a smaller and deeper, like a more narrow and deeper pot for the soup, because if it's wide and shallow, it's harder to get the blender to do its thing, and I might make a little bit of a mess. I know a lot of people have different meat sensitivities. One of my besties can't have red meat, which is very unfortunate because he goes mental every time he smells bacon here, but he knows he can't eat it. And unfortunately, he's somebody that's a lot of fun to tease, but I don't when it comes to the food, because that's just cruel. And yeah, Casper's Cloud, absolutely. Like, you shouldn't feel crappy after you eat. If that's the case, you're just not doing food right. And for me, peanut butter, it depends on, you know, what day of the month it is for me. Because some days I love peanut butter and it's great for me. Other days I feel like I'm damn near, like I'm on the edge of having an allergic reaction. No, he's got Addison's disease and he has some other gastro something or other going on. Alpha Gal, I don't know what that is. And my inner 12-year-old wants to crack an Astroglide joke, but I don't know. Only my inner 12-year-old. My pretend to be an adult side says I'll never crack a joke like that. I have a weird sensitivity when it comes to nuts. Like for me, it really seems to depend on if I'm feeling run down. Then I'm a lot more sensitive to certain nuts. Like when I was younger, I was straight on allergic to walnuts. They bothered the heck out of me, and even almond skins used to bother me a lot. And then one day, as if by magic, I tried them and they didn't bother me. And then another day, as if by magic, I was feeling like crap and they bothered me a lot. And over the years, I kind of put 2 and 2 together and figured out if I'm feeling run down, I should just avoid nuts. And if I'm not feeling run down, everything's fair game. And I'm a sucker for peanut butter. And almonds and cashews. Cashews I don't think ever bothered me, but almonds, especially the skins, and peanut butter. If only there's a relevant Greekish term for a weakness that might be fatal. Maybe foot related, I don't know. We've got about 3 minutes left. This stuff is still simmering. Oh, that bacon. Oh, so good. And unfortunately, I keep getting water in the bottom of this cast iron pan, which I need to wipe out. I don't like having water just sitting in my cast iron pan. And the reason I have my cast iron pan out is because this is what I'm going to use to fry up the asparagus later today. I'm going to pretend that this cast iron pan is my barbecue grill. Oh, wow. Ticks. That's crazy. So the takeaway for today is nature wants to kill you. Don't go into nature. This public service announcement brought to you by Okay, I'm gonna look up the recipe. Oh, I need a little bit of cream at some point. And because that's how I roll. When a recipe calls for cream, I don't skimp out. I go for the good stuff. The good stuff being heavy whipping cream. Because it is surprisingly cheap at Costco, who has not yet sponsored me. I'm still a little upset. I'm just going to reduce the soup a little bit. I might have a little bit too much liquid in there. I'll show you what that looks like. Just a little bit too much. If you're playing the home game, you still want to have about 2 pounds of asparagus trimmed already. So you'll want like probably 2.5 pounds before you wash and trim it, and then you should be good, give or take. Yeah, I'll leave the lid off to let some of the steam out. What else is going in the chat? Exercise bike POV. Oh, nice, nice. Yeah, I've always wondered about the whole Peloton experience. I'm vaguely aware that those bikes themselves are hideously expensive, but if you are getting something of an immersive experience, and it's pleasant enough that you actually want to keep hopping on that gizmo and working out, what's the real price for your health? I don't know. Like, the cheap bastard in me says there's no way in heck I would ever spend thousands of dollars on a stationary bike. And the person in me that wants to live, past 60 thinks, yeah, maybe I should invest in one of those things since all of our gyms are still locked down. I'm going to say something that's going to border on blasphemous. There might be too much bacon in here. I'm funny. That was a joke. That was a joke. Too much bacon, whatever. Just going to let it thicken up a little bit. By it, I mean the soup. And in a couple of minutes, I'm going to puree it up. I'm going to lower the heat. That's right, Sudeep. This is never enough. There's no such thing as too much bacon. Oh, the instructions on the website are pretty good too about if you don't have an immersion blender, remove everything from the heat and transfer it to a large bowl and then blend it 1 cup at a time in your blender. And just be careful about blending the hot liquids, and then when you're done, return everything to the pot, because that's when we're going to add the cream. Don't mind me, I'm just hiding the cast iron pans. Okay, this is good. I'm now going to attempt to rotate my camera over. Let us hope that the Logitechs don't get too mad at me. Okay. Perfect. If this pot was deeper, this would be a lot better and safer. I do have a deeper pot. I'm actually tempted to move this to the deeper pot, except for that deeper pot is just as narrow. So I'm just going to tilt this over. So if this was deeper, I wouldn't have to keep stopping and starting. I could just puree this all in one shot. But good enough. This is going to work. And if I really wanted to thicken this up, that's delicious. Oh, wow. Boiling hot, but man, that tastes good. If I really wanted to thicken this up, I could make a little slurry with cornstarch. It's still a soup, and I still want it to come across like a soup. So I think this consistency is absolutely fine. I just don't want there to be any lumps of asparagus. So I want this pureed fairly smooth. Oh, that smell and that taste is fan-freaking-tastic. Okay, so I have my water in the pot over there boiling. Tips. Just the tip. Come on. That was too obvious. But still hilarious. I'm going to add my cream. I'm going to just return the soup to the warm element, which I've turned off. So I'll make sure the cream is thoroughly incorporated. Make it something like a cream of asparagus soup. Creamy asparagus soup, something like that. Ah, 2.5 minutes left on the clock. Okay, so I'm going to return this to its upright position. Please return your stewardess to the upright position. Ooh, fat bombs. Oh, cream of mushroom. Awesome. Awesome. Okay, I have my salt, my pepper, my garnish. We are almost done. We're almost done. Look at those beautiful bacon bits.
Celador has a question that's off of Discord.
Celador has a question.
I am adapting a brownie recipe that calls for vegetable oil and butter. And I am wondering if I could substitute the oil with either ghee or coconut oil.
Yes. You can always substitute ghee for butter.
No, oil, the vegetable oil.
I'm going to read the other question. Oh, for fat bombs. No. No, I don't think the...
No.
I'm going to have to go read the Discord.
Brownie recipe calls for vegetable oil and butter. Wondering if they could substitute the oil with ghee or coconut oil.
Yes, you might need to adjust, if you're doing keto, you might have to adjust how much flour you're using. You might need to put in like a teaspoon of coconut flour just to absorb the extra liquid that you're putting in. But you should be able to substitute the coconut oil or the butter, ghee, for the vegetable oil that's called for. So the cream that's floating on top is, you can stir it in and make it look pretty later. And if you want to be extra fancy, you can take a couple of drops of your favorite ultra hot chili oil, just for a few drops of awesomeness, just off to the side, just for a little bit of color and a ton of heat. This stuff has been sitting in my fridge for years. It is it's the good stuff. I need to buy another jar so I can leave it in my fridge for a few years before I get around to it. So here we have a very, very basic, nice and rustic. When I go to stir this, the cream's going to incorporate and it's just going to become a creamier color. I could have just put a dollop along one side for presentation. Whichever works. It's going to get incorporated anyways. I'm going to go feed this to the studio audience, and then we're going to get started on the buns. Casper's Cloud says, that looks like it might burn on the way out. It's not that bad. It's not that bad. Although I do have a bit of a cast iron digestive system compared to DJ Nouveau. It's very hot, just like that. So what I'm gonna do is retrieve some of the stuff from the oven. This has had more than enough time to rise. By this I mean the dough. Hydrate. Large. It is spelled ghee. Well, that's the way I'm used to seeing it. Ghee does the body good. That's the way I'm used to seeing it spelled. The price at Costco for a tub of ghee, when you factor in what it's made out of, surprisingly cheap. Yeah, you can. I'm used to seeing it with an H. Otherwise, I think people would call it G. And then it would get all sorts of confusing for rappers on East and West Coast. Just saying. Now, the eternal question is, do I really, really, really need to put parchment paper on my looks dang near brand new Nordic ware pan? Kind of. I don't need to. I'm just used to it, and I do, and I will. 350 is what's going to happen when I'm going to cook it. Apparently it's yummy.
I would make the suggestion that if you're going to add that much bacon, you probably want to cut back on the salt.
Yeah, a little salty from the bacon. But yummy. So I'm just going to gently press this down, deflate it a bit. Going to flour the work surface here. Apparently there's a duck. I'm just going to chop this up into roughly even pieces. I could, probably should weigh this, but again, rustic, right? If I really want to make these look pretty, I'm going to pull the ends aside, tuck them underneath. I might have to get a little bit of moisture in these so that the bottoms don't have these folds. I can't stress enough how dry it is in here. It's very dry. Just add a little bit of, just a few drops to the bottom of these buns. It's going to help hold everything together much better. Yeah, it's crazy dry in this place. Wood building, and it's very hard controlling the temperature in here. The temperature in here gets controlled by opening the balcony door,
Yeah.
where it's typically -0 to -40 Fahrenheit in the winter. And that's how I control my temperature, by opening the door with a fan on when it's -40 outside, because it gets too hot in here. Because I don't seem to have a working thermostat. I don't think the building does either. And my neighbors upstairs say it gets hotter up there.
Which makes sense.
Which makes sense because cold falls down. It's going to need a few more drops of water to stay together.
Super yummy.
Apparently the soup is yummy, or it's super yummy. Some combination of the two. Okay, all of these are going to need just a little touch more water. When I took the dough out of the oven, I don't know if you could see, there were some parts that were, and it was kind of weird because on the camera the color correction showed it a lot more than my eyeballs did. That there were some dry patches. Yeah, it was kind of weird that it showed up on the camera. I should have pointed it out a little more. I should have pointed it out at all. These are really dry, so the way to fix it is I'm just rolling them over, adding a few drops of water. Like so, just a little bit of water. I'm just going to mix this up some more. I'm going to increase the temperature in my oven just by turning it on for a couple of minutes. The buns are going to go back into the oven that's slightly warm. They're going to rise for 20 minutes, and then I'm going to bake them. So these buns will be ready by the time the stream is just about over. And these are just little dinner rolls anyway, so I don't care if they are. They don't need to be super pretty or fancy looking. Just gonna get a little bit of water on each of these little clumps. The most important part is that the finished bun is the same height when it's on the pan before it rises for a second time. That's the important thing, just so they cook more consistently. I mean, the same size and shape overall is ideal. And if I really cared all that much, I'd be weighing them instead of just eyeballing clumps that are both the same size. Fine line between being lazy and showing you that it doesn't really matter all that much. I'm calling out my own laziness. I don't know if that makes anything better. Does it? Let me know. Let me know if you think I'm going a little too fast and loose with the rules here, or if it's good enough. This bun I'm just going to roll together. Going to use my two hands, sort of bring it together into something more bun shaped. If I really wanted to, I could keep turning this inside out, get a few drops of water on the inside. And I think I'm missing the duck reference. Shock, can you elaborate? Can you shed some light on the thing that is the duck reference? So I'm just pulling the top, tucking it in underneath, and if all goes according to plan, after I pull and stretch into the bottom a few times, without looking, I'm going to take a look at the bottom and I'll see how many folds there are, how pleated it looks. Yeah, it needs a little more work. Was it too spicy or was it just... Yeah. It was just hot. That's not bad. And the last one, again, needs a... When you see the dough coming apart in sheets like this, what it looks like it's flaky and ripping apart, it's an indication that it needs a little more water. Yeah, the joke up here is when somebody lets one rip, we crack a joke that they stepped on a duck. And then there's the ducks that live in the swimming pool. It's Mr. and Mrs. Quackers. They come to visit every year till the landlord gets the caretaker to shoo them away. Pretty sure they moved the eggs nicely. Hopefully they did, because Mr. and Mrs. Quackers have had a couple of little egglings over a few years. And yeah. So whenever anybody passes some gas, as the saying goes, there's a joke about a duck. So when somebody mentions a duck anywhere, I'm always curious if there's some gas attack happening or if they're literally talking about a duck. My coins. Like Scrooge McDuck. There might be too many pop culture references from 30 years ago that I'm missing. So if I pull the dough around from the top like this, it's not ripping as much as it was before. Underneath it is coming together a lot better. Those folds are disappearing, so I'm just going to press down, shape this up into something a little more bun-like. Again, nice and rustic. I don't care that they are a little unevenly shaped. They're roughly the same size. That's good enough. Oh, that one, the loony. Ah, it's a loon, not a duck. Right. Are loons members of the duck family? I don't know. Quick, somebody set up a poll. Is a loon a duck? I don't know the genus and the species, so I have no idea if they're related. And in general, I'm terrible with life sciences because I hate memorizing things that I'm not remotely interested in. So if somebody wouldn't mind, please Google that for me. Oh. Dang it. Well, we still learned something today. We learned that bacon is salty and loons aren't ducks. Or is it ducks aren't loons? Maybe both. Maybe both. I'm going to set 20 minutes on the dough. Yeah, I don't know if the loons have male pokey bits the way that ducks do with their corkscrew. If you want to terrify yourself, look up ducks and their genitals, because those things are really messed up animals. Like, they have this weird arms race going on. Yeah. Yeah, it's weird stuff. And I should probably stop the my end of the discussion on that before I get myself into trouble. Interesting. I think it's terrifying, but whatever. I need to move the soup over a bit. Right now. Ornithology. Okay, next I'm going to grill up Yeah, I think I'm going to do the baking at the same time. So I'm going to get these. Oh, 1 second. I'm going to do the buns of the bacon wrapped asparagus at the same time. Yeah. No, it's good. Always second guess, 'cause I might miss something. The question was, should I be doing the bacon wrapped asparagus now, but I want to bake this at the same time as the buns. These feel kind of weird. Don't know how to describe why they feel weird. They feel like hollow reeds or something. It's weird. These ones I'm just going to chop 2 inches from the bottom, which is exactly what I said to not do earlier, but I'm pretty very confident that these are going to snap wherever I grab them. And after bending a couple, I know that this is more than enough to trim off the bottom. I want these the same length. There's a variety of colors in this one. Okay, so the bacon wrapped ones. For bacon wrapped, you can wrap them individually, or you can grab 2 or 3 and wrap them with a piece of bacon. I'm going to do 5 of these with 1 strip of bacon each. These ones are going to get fried. I'm going to wash them all. Product of Canada. The other ones are product of Mexico. Old buddy of mine, his parents went to Nanaimo to retire, and they were growing a palm tree in their front yard. That blew me away, because the first year that I saw the palm tree, it was yay high, and the next year that I went back to visit, it was like yay high. And apparently it's been doing fine ever since. Palm tree in Canada. It just seems weird to me. And I know Canada has a ton of different, like, biomes or whatever. It just seems weird because I still think of Canada as, you know, frozen wasteland of the north, because it kind of is. Okay, so I'm just going to pull out another 10 of these. 2, 4, 6, 8. One's tiny, she said. 10 asparagus. These ones I'm just going to grill. These ones I'm going to grill. And the easiest way to grill asparagus is with a hot pan. On your barbecue works too. Just make sure you go across the grate, not in line with the grates, because the asparagus can fall through the grates. And that's not very great, but that was terrible, I know, thank you. Even in the other room, I could hear DJ Nuvo's eyes rolling. Okay, so in this cast iron pan, I'm going to put some butter, some oil, like 2 or 3 tablespoons of butter. Just going to put this on medium-low. I'm just going to heat it up and then put in a couple of tablespoons, 1 tablespoon of olive oil. It's a healthy tablespoon. I want some minced garlic, which is convenient because I have some garlic from earlier. That's in this jar. I could get my little mincitron, or I could just chop it up with a knife. Knife it is. Is asparagus an aphrodisiac? For me it is. If you being anyone, finds your way up here, smeared in asparagus, yeah, it's gonna get me into trouble. Again, with the garlic, just gonna keep this on screen. Have my pile of garlic that I'm mincing, tip on the board, hold the tip in place, and then just up and down, up and down, up and down. And I'm slowly rotating the knife around, but the tip I'm holding in place. Nothing's going sliding around, nothing's flying around. My fingers are far, far away from the business end of the blade. I have no interest in cutting myself. It's not fun. So Desmodus, I actually think it might be an aphrodisiac, in all seriousness. It very well could be. I would not be surprised if that were the case. If aphrodisiacs even exist. So in the pan, I'm going to put just a little bit of salt and a bit of pepper. Once the butter is fully melted, I'm going to slowly raise the temperature. I'm going to get it sizzling a bit, throw the asparagus in. Oh, you know what? I should show you what this looks like. Hang on. Camera, don't fail me now. Aha! There is a little bit of a debate among the culinary folks of the world about when you should add pepper to your dishes when you're cooking with them, because you can burn pepper. You can't really burn salt because it's a mineral. You can't really burn it. You can burn pepper though. So should you even be cooking with pepper, or save your pepper till the end of your cooking and then season it? It's kind of a good question, and like logically, I'm leaning towards camp. Use your pepper to season later on, instead of just having the pepper and cooking it earlier on in the process. I do this just because that's what I'm used to. But like one of these days when I'm really, really bored, I'm going to sit down and do the taste test and do something like I don't know, maybe a chili, or have like a creamy sauce or something that's cooked over a period of time. And I'm going to add the pepper in different batches at different times and see if there's a real difference at the end, and overall how much pepper I needed to get the same final flavor. And why would I do that? Because I'm dumb. That's why. Because it's science. No, because I'm curious, and I understand the argument that you can burn pepper, and if you're cooking with it, you can be infusing the flavor, your wet ingredients with the flavor of the pepper while you're cooking it. But the other side is just you can just add the pepper at the end. If you want pepper flavor, just add it at the end, and you're not going to risk overcooking or burning it. I would have thought that the vitamin K is where the afro properties come from. What's the vitamin K in asparagus? I'm going to Google that. Dear Google, vitamin K. I should not have said that out loud. Gosh dang it. Oh. Ooh. There's 92 micrograms of vitamin K in some sort of amount of boiled and drained asparagus. Kale is loaded with vitamin K, so is spinach. No wonder Popeye was so virile. Okay, never mind. So 1 cup of kale, boiled and drained, has like 11 times the vitamin K as asparagus. So asparagus isn't particularly low on the list, but it's definitely not a vitamin K superfood. And vitamin K is a weird one. Vitamin K is, there's a bit of a discussion actually about that one, that it should be classified as an essential nutrient. And people on the other side of the fence say, well, you're measuring it in micrograms and nobody dies from a vitamin K deficiency, so we're just going to veto that. So the garlic is starting to become fragrant. We're halfway between medium, low, and medium. It's slowly cooking. I'm starting to smell the other flavors coming out. So what I need to do here, I'm going to raise the temperature to medium high, and as soon as I think that I'm approaching that, I'm going to throw the asparagus into here, being the cast iron pan, and I'm going to let it cook for about 10 minutes. I need to keep turning it to make sure that it's cooked evenly on both sides. Yeah, I'm really getting that garlic flavor. And I think, let's see if you can see that on the camera. I would pick up the pan, but this handle is also super duper hot. Some of these little bits of garlic are starting to turn brown. Good enough. So if this was my barbecue, if this was my grill, or my craw, if you will, good enough. Yeah, it does smell good. I'd be laying those horizontally across my grill that was oiled, and these I would spray or lightly brush some olive oil on them, just so they don't burn on the grill. Was there a funny joke in the chat that I missed? Hang on.
Just laughing because
Oh. Oh my god, I'm so sorry about that, Sadiq. It's so funny though. So these buns have puffed up nicely. As soon as this asparagus is done, I'm going to quickly wrap the other ones, these guys, in bacon. Oven's going to go up to 350 while I'm doing that, and then bake everything. 20 minutes later, we're done. Oh, that smell. Ooh. So like right now is when I think I should be seasoning this with salt and pepper, not in the garlic and the butter. But I know that the butter is going to be carrying that seasoning into the asparagus. Is it 6 on one and half a dozen of the other? I don't know. It might just be 6 half dozens and the other. I always get confused with that. Roll this around. The garlic is going to start turning toasty brown, but that's fine. The asparagus is going to brighten up and then become a little more roasted, and then it's good. So I'm going to get a plate for that asparagus. You know what? I need to store this soup in the other room because I don't have room in my kitchen. I know, I have a kitchen. First world problems, right? I recorded my painting area, my cooking area this afternoon. And I'm finally going to make an intro video for my channel. Finally, after a year. I'm finally going to look like a real streamer, allegedly. Oh, and speaking of real streamers, please support Shock. Mars Persalot is missing Daddy. He's going to need a whole lot of catnip to deal with the anxiety of being separated. So if you have a heart, please contribute to the Get Kitty Stone Fund. I'm only slightly kidding. Please support Shock. If you can. If you think the content is worthwhile for you, it definitely is for me. Big fan of the work, big fan of the community, happy to support it. If you can afford, great. If you can't, don't feel bad about it, because I know a lot of people are still struggling with what's happening outside, and I don't want anyone to feel bad because they're in a bad situation. But if you're not in a bad situation, I'm going to make you feel bad. So here we have our asparagus, grilled, sauteed, if you will. We're going to pretend that I grilled this on my barbecue, but it's just completely doused in butter and garlic and nice and grilled, as it were, pretending that I grilled it. Should probably be using tongs for this, but I've got my spatula handy, so that's what I'm going to use. Don't do away with ya. I'm not using my fingers. Now, if you look in the pan, the garlic is nice and golden brown. Terribly sorry. The garlic is nice and golden brown. It is not anywhere near black. The butter is just a little brown from the garlic itself, not from burning. You got to watch that. If it looks like the butter is burning, if it looks like the garlic is turning black, you got to lower the heat and be a little more careful with how fast you're turning everything around. Because we don't want this to taste like it's burnt. This is nice and brown from the grilling, from frying in the pan. And we have these little bits of nice crispy garlic in with it. I would recommend against seasoning this anymore. Just put it on a plate, serve it up, make sure there's some salt and pepper handy if people want to add more salt. They can knock themselves out. Otherwise, this is just a nice little side dish. I think it's cute. Let's wrap some bacon around some asparagus. Okay, I'm going to take these buns out of the oven area. I want to turn my oven on to 350. I'm going to grab another piece of parchment paper. Because that's how I roll. Uh-oh. Oh no, Demon N99. Buy followers, primes, and viewers. How many primes? Are they really big primes? Can we use it to break RSA encryption? Please tell me more. Wade. Someone. Banhammer. I'll get my bacon. You know what's really alien to me today? Is I'm not weaving up a bacon. It's going to seem so weird to me to open up a package of bacon and A, not use all of it, and B, not weave it up. And by alien, I mean I'm going to freak out about it, so I'm going to end up doing that anyways. Does anybody want to see a bacon weave? I'm going to pretend everyone's cheering, oh my god, yes, we need a bacon weave. If we don't have a bacon weave today, our lives will have been meant nothing. We will have endured all this misery for naught. Vlahos, please give our lives meaning. With the exploration of the bacon weave. And here we are. Need to put something down just so this stays dry. Okay, first things first. Each one of these pairs of asparagus perfect. Is that perfect? Close enough. Each one of these pairs is going to get one strip of bacon. It's easier if the bacon is at room temperature. There's a few ways to wrap these two. I can start from the top, just gently overlap the segments, just like this, nice and easy, all the way down. And that's it. That's all we have to do. The bacon's going to hold its shape and do its thing. Or we can go for a tighter wrap. So you can start going up this way towards the top and then wrapping back down and go for a slightly tighter weave. Wrap, thank you. I got bacon weave on the brain. Does it really make a difference? If you wrap it tight enough, not really. I don't think it does. It's also easier if the bacon is at room temperature. It's just easier to work with. And you can use a much steeper angle for the wrapping and get further down. Is there a real difference? Underwater bacon weaving, yeah.
Like underwater basket weaving.
Yeah, except for this might actually have a use, the underwater.
Where it come from?
Underwater basket weaving? I don't know. I think it's just... What is the origin of that? Like, I get the reference, obviously, that it's just a truly frivolous, meaningless course. But what is the pop culture reference to that? Because when I was growing up, it's what the engineering students accused everyone liberal arts of studying in general. There was quite the rivalry on campus between the engineering students and like basically everyone else. Okay, 2, 3. Yeah, this one's falling apart. The nice thing about bacon, other than it's bacon, is it is fairly pliable, and you don't have to be super gentle when handling it. Yeah, but where did it come from? Like, who was the first person to use that phrase? Like, where does the expression come from? Like, we know what it means. That it's just a frivolous, useless skill. But why? Sure, it can be. You can refer to something frivolous and useless as a skill. Like tying a cherry stem in your mouth. I mean, it's a relatively useless skill. It's pretty frivolous, but it's still a skill. It's something that you need to practice to get good at. For me, that's where I would define the word skill. That's just me, though. Bacon weave, I'm doing this backwards today. Normally I go from my left to right. Today I'm going to go very different. I'm going to go right to left. Every second layer. Oh, this bacon, this is a great example. This bacon is like the worst shape for weaving, which makes me really happy because this is going to be a challenge. Okay, see how wonky this is?
Yeah,
That's awesome. Well, hopefully they'll figure it out. So I'm just alternating on this first strip. One strip goes above, one strip goes below this first guiding piece. Let's move these guys off to the side. And then from here, every second strip, starting with the strip that is underneath the lead, or the most recently placed vertical strip of bacon, every second strip gets pulled up. The next strip of bacon comes down. Yeah, what's really nice about this is the bacon is definitely not ideal for weaving. I don't have these perfect horizontal rectangular strips. I have a lot of wonky cuts. So you're going to get to see me sort of pushing and coaxing and begging and pleading the bacon into shape. Yeah. Again, every second strip comes up. Yeah, above water bacon weaving. Nice. That is funny. So, I have a nice section of woven bacon here. If I put this in the oven, this section up here, it's 2 layers of bacon. So this is going to cook at roughly half the rate of the rest of this, which means the rest of this is going to be burnt, possibly before this gets cooked. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to fix that by trimming off the excess and layering these pieces on top of each other. So I have 2 strips of bacon. On top of each other. And this way, it should cook a lot more evenly. Doop-a-doop-a-doo. Dooba-dooba-dooba-doo-boo. And these end pieces I'm just going to trim. And stack them up. So here we have I hope that makes sense to everyone. Yeah. So here's the woven piece of the bacon. The rest of these pieces, it's 2 ply of bacon, so they'll cook evenly. After about 15 minutes, I'm going to flip the bacon wrapped asparagus over. The whole thing's going to take about half an hour. And after 10 minutes, I'm going to pop the buns in so everything comes out at the same time. $15 minutes. After 10 minutes, I'm going to pop the buns in, so everything is done before 7 my time, which is just in time for Sudeep to take over. So I'm going to start tidying up just a little bit here because I want some room to work with. Are there any questions? Or, more importantly, are there any requests? The whole point of my stream for the cooking is I want basic ingredients, simple recipes, no gadgets, no fancy techniques. All of this is supposed to be very accessible. It's supposed to be quasi-edutainmental. I'm mental. Hopefully remotely somewhat entertaining, but educational. Yeah. Yeah. So if there's any questions or requests, or if you want to see something in particular, let me know. You can join the Discord. I will dig up the link in just a minute. I'm happy to answer basically any question. I've started an AMA section, and I will on my stream be answering those for channel redemption points, or if there's a particularly interesting question, I can do a story time. When you get to be my age, you got all sorts of stories. I'm going to go dig up my Discord link. Twitch. The Vlahos / a boot. We crossed the ocean in a boat. There's my Discord. Feel free to join it. I believe sometime in March, I'm going to be doing my The Herb Chocolate Brownies. And if you happen to look at the first initial of The Herb Chocolate, you'll know what I'm referring to. Our Twitch overlords did not say that I wasn't allowed to do an edibles stream. just to observe international laws, which I don't understand because there's content on Twitch that violates some law in some country somewhere. So I just won't be making any medical claims, and I'll have to flag the content as mature or adult or whatever it is. And I'll need to speak with Mr. Shock about doing that on here, or if I should do that on my stream. Because I've never done it. I've never de-gassed my own herbs. I've never done that before, and I kind of need to for medicinal reasons, because I can't smoke this stuff, and I'm supposed to. So I've got the liquid. I have a prescription. It's legal up here, like recreationally. It's cannabis and all the related products are completely legal. If you're, I think it's 19 plus. It might be 18. 18 is the drinking age in most of Canada. Although I think you might need to be 19 for cannabis. I'm over both of those ages, so I really don't care. Yeah, it's a good skill to learn. You know, most skills are, except for maybe the underwater basket weaving. I'm really curious about the concentration and how strong and how consistent things get with the degassing and that whole process. So I am genuinely curious about it and how it all works. Okay. Yeah, like I used to smoke, for the longest time I smoked a pack a day of John Player Special cigarettes. That's like the second or the third strongest cigarette you can get in Canada. There were 25 in a pack. So I know down in the States they're 20 packs. And for the last few years that I was smoking, I was down to like 2.5 packs a week. And then I've been vaping for the last 3. So you'd figure that I'd be okay with inhaling stuff, and I tried a few months ago and I just did not like it. I did not like it. Yeah, like it felt like burning going down, and I just didn't like anything about it. I mean, it smelled fantastic. I've always enjoyed the smell, but it's inhaling is not the thing for me. So here we are. So I have my CBD with various concentrations, and I don't know. It works, but I figured I could probably do some edibles. I tried water pipes, and it was smoother than like the old school pipe style, but yeah, it just didn't do it for me.
Wow, it sounds like technical vape flower.
Vape flower, wow. And I don't want to get the Vapotron that's designed for the right temperatures to use the terpenes and all the other green related stuff. And I know I'm skirting around the words. I just don't want any algorithms to flag anything. I'm not encouraging any behavior, especially if it's illegal in your country. I'm just objectively discussing it. So there's 7 minutes. You know what? I'm just gonna pop these. Oh, it smells wonderful. I'm gonna pop these into the oven. These being the buns. Yeah, I figured. Thanks for that, Casper's Cloud. I figured I'd have to stay at a fairly low temperature just because I don't want to denature the oils. I don't want anything to be reacting from a higher temperature. Yeah, that's a really good point. From what I've read, I think you degas it at like 250 or something, which makes sense to me. Oh, speaking of 250, I made some beef jerky the other day, and I didn't hear my alarm go off, so it came out a little darker than I wanted. It's still a little chewy. This is dried out a bit.
Dry.
It's dry. It's still super tasty, super easy to make. And if I actually paid attention to my alarm, this would have been nice and chewy and a few shades lighter. But beef jerky is... It's still tasty. Like, this is still really, really, really tasty beef jerky, and I have complete control over what went into this. So this was just soy sauce, Worcestershire, like a dollop of honey, some chili oil, salt and pepper, some paprika. That was it. My local grocery store had rouladin. I think it was from a shoulder roast, and it was cut to about 1/4 of an inch thick. That's the normal thickness for rouladin. I ask for it a bit thinner when I get it cut at my butcher, just because. But you just make the marinade. You soak the strips in the marinade for anywhere from 4 to 12 hours, and then you pat them dry, put them on a cooling rack with a baking sheet underneath, and that goes into my oven at 175 for 3 hours 45 to 4 hours, maybe 4 1/4 hours, and my oven is propped open with this super, super high-tech tool. It's a ball of tin foil, aluminum foil, and this just props the oven door open to let the moisture out, so it just dehydrates. Speaking of hydrating, and that's it. That's how you make beef jerky at home for like 1/4 the price. And you can make whatever flavors you want. You can make your own teriyaki, you can do your own hot, you can do your own spicy. You can really do whatever flavor you want. You're not cooking anything because the temperature stays at like 175. It's super, super easy. And as long as you pay attention to the time, unlike me, because I was super distracted by Twitch, I'm not going to blame anyone in particular other than myself, because it's totally my fault. Yeah. But it's super easy. And even though I screwed it up, it's still tasty. Like, it's hard to actually burn it. I'm pretty sure it could have handled another hour, and it still would have been edible. Let's not try. And that's the difference between, you know, the theory and the practical. The theory, I'm pretty sure it would work. Practically, I don't want to find out, because that would just be a waste of meat. I think I have pictures of it on my Discord. I don't know if it's on the blog. And again, the blog is the Daily Bear. I tend to have the Twitch streams linked. If the stream links don't work, it's because they have been moved to YouTube, and I'm still editing the YouTube videos. And one of these days I'll have enough YouTube watch time so I can properly advertise the better videos. Like my Keto Big Mac was, that was a lot of fun. The Krispy Kreme donuts, also a keto recipe. That thing, I think it has the potential to go viral once I release it. I posted some pictures and the macros on some of the keto groups, and people went mental. Like, from some relatively small groups, I had a few thousand shares of it, and I'm pretty sure if I advertised it all, it could have actually gone viral, which would have been neat. I mean, living the dream is to become internet famous so I can do this full time and quit my day job, because, you know, day job. But more importantly, the biggest reason why I do this is for my own mental health. And I don't want to make it weird, but I really need to thank everyone for tuning in, just because this has done a lot for my own sanity, and I'm not being hyperbolic. And the amazing people that I've met on Twitch over the last year and a half, it's truly been a blessing. So thank you everyone for tuning in. And make sure Mars Persalot gets fed. Lots of premium catnip. I'm going to take a look at getting a face full of bacon steam. I mean, there's worse things to happen, right? When you get some tongs, I'm going to flip over the bacon wrapped asparagus in a few minutes. And then in 17 minutes, it should all be done. I can pull it out of the oven, and then we can raid Sudeep. I mean, Sudeep can take over. Ba-doop-a-doo. If there's any ethnic food that anyone wants me to try, if I haven't made it before, I'm always excited and happy to do so. I've made a lot of different cuisines over the years, and there's some ingredients that I'm not going to play around with, like various feet. I'm not a fan of a lot of tripe dishes. There is one Greek specific recipe for Easter that involves various organs and tripe. That's absolutely fantastic. It's like the best elements of haggis, but it's tasty and it's not crap. It's actually one of my favorite, and I'm not one to have favorites when it comes to foods. It is one of my favorite foods. It really is. Yeah, it's fantastic stuff. Unfortunately, I don't think it works if it's not cooked with rice. So I haven't had any for a couple of years because of the keto. I'll see what happens. I might dig into it this year. But normally my mom makes it. She's old. She's hitting like 150 this year or something. I thought she would have retired into a tar pit by now, but she's still around and kicking. Good for her. So I don't know if she's going to make it this year, or if I'm finally going to be the designated Greek to cook it for the family. The real goal for me this year for Easter would be to find a friend that has a backyard where I could do a proper barbecue pit and do a whole lamb. I do like the entire traditional Greek spread for Easter. Because I have not been involved with roasting a whole critter, a non-bird critter, for a number of years now. Yeah. And just make a whole day of it, because it would be a day of cooking, so I'd be like in and out of the kitchen to the backyard. I need various plugs and really good internet and all that stuff. So I don't know if it's ever going to happen, but it's something I'd like to do. Definitely something I'd like to do. But if there's any specific cuisine, any specific ethnic foods, I'm totally down for either trying or breaking out an old recipe that I've monkeyed around with. Or if you want to share one of your family recipes, please post it in the Discord, and I will do my best to make it. So yeah, in general, I'm going to avoid things like brains, eyes, feet, the gross organs, tripe, genitals, anus, taint. I'm going to stay away from those. I want to stick to normal cuts of meat. Normal. We need to compress some time here. Okay, I'm going to take this asparagus and probably doesn't need to be flipped over, but I'm going to anyways. But the bacon weave is coming along nicely. Asparagus is nice and green. The part that isn't wrapped in bacon is starting to exactly, Casper's Cloud. That's exactly it. Well done. So I flipped the asparagus over. You can see the fat buildup on the bottom. This will look a lot prettier once this melts and rinse down again. And this will all be done in about 20 minutes. In the meantime, I'm going to go grab one of the grilled, pan fried, if you will. Yeah. So I'm getting all of the wonderful asparagus flavor. It's still a little tender, but the fact that it's fried in salt and butter makes it awesome. And even though that garlic looked just a little brown, it's borderline burnt. So I would not go out of my way to eat it. But the flavor it infuses into the oil is awesome. Horror stuff. I don't know, I've been stabbed a couple of times, but I don't recommend it. I've cut myself a few times with... Do I have any active cuts? I don't think so. No. Oh, that's a long story. The things to watch out for, I just don't like being cut. And safety first, like all the joking aside. If you're rushing and you're using knives, you need to slow down, take the extra 30 seconds and do things properly, because the vast majority of accidents can be prevented. So when in doubt, don't. Or make sure you're doing things in a way that seems very, very safe and careful for you. I don't really have any kitchen horror stories when it comes to knives, though. I'm trying to think. Like I've nicked fingers over the years, but I don't think I've cut myself for a while. And the biggest reason is because I don't like being cut, and I'm pretty careful with the knives. And even though, like, when I'm not on stream, I will cut things more quickly, I'm still using the claw technique, and when I'm chopping things up quickly because I want to do it faster and I can do it safely because I practiced, it's still controlled. Like, I know what I'm doing. So, yeah. The difference between going chop, 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 chop really quickly and slowly, methodically sliding down with the claw is a few seconds. And in the real world, the advantage for being able to chop things quickly is if you're prepping vegetables for hundreds of people. If you're feeding an army barracks, that's one thing and you need to be quick. If you're feeding a few hundred people one serving, like if you're running a course, that's, you know, that it helps if you're fast. If you're doing like various if you're trying to rotate the customers in a restaurant a few times for seatings and you need to be prepping very quickly, sure. That's all commercial, that's all industrial, that's all mass production stuff. That's not your home kitchen with, you know, feeding 1 to 6 people. Because the time difference between going super fast, chop, 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 and taking your time, it's like 10 or 15 seconds. So at home, it's irrelevant. And the risk of cutting yourself for saving 15 seconds, just not worth it. And don't get me wrong, it looks all sorts of impressive and you get to show off, but you know, you do you. I don't think it's worth practicing doing it quickly if you're just cooking at home. The buns are surprisingly almost ready. Which is good because we have 9 minutes left, and then Sudeep is going to take us on a magical adventure. Sudeep, can you give us a preview? Can you give us a sneak peek into what's brewing in that noodle of yours? Or is it all top secret, big surprise? There's something really comforting about the smell of freshly baked bread. And there's a lot of compelling reasons to start your dough the night before. Wrap it up in a ball, put it in your fridge so it slows down the rising process. First thing in the morning, turn your oven on, let the dough come up to temperature. It'll start rising anyways. You bake it. Like an hour after you wake up, you have freshly baked bread. That's instant, infinite brownie points with whoever you're trying to impress first thing in the morning. Right. Prime cuts. Couple more minutes. Just a few more minutes. Maybe I can do a happy dance right now. I don't know. I'm just gonna hydrate. Can't hear me because I'm not saying anything.
Oh yeah. But it looks like your lips were
What? Maybe I was having a seizure. I don't know. There's the link to the blog. The vast majority of my recipes are there. We got us some fresh baked buns.
those look pretty.
You're pretty. And the bottoms are nice and slightly darker brown. This was cooked on the bottom shelf. Normally I'd cook it a little higher up, but that's fine. These are nowhere near burnt. There's the bottoms. Hopefully the color correction isn't getting stupid on me. Yeah. The bacon wrapped asparagus is almost done. I'm not gonna. Oh, we've got 5 minutes left. It might be done by then. This weave is almost together. I'm just gonna rotate this in the oven. This is getting really, really, really hot.
Back left is the hot.
Yeah, I gotta rotate my stuff around. Yeah, it is good and it smells good. And these buns are fantastic. And the nice thing about buns that size, even though it's super hot, because they're relatively small, I don't have any super dense spots in the middle. Like there's still steam coming out. I should let the buns cool down to something closer to room temperature, but the smaller the bun, the faster you can serve it and the warmer you can serve it, because when you get something the size of a loaf, yeah, I've got to butter this up for Mademoiselle Nouveau, who's not strict keto like me. Yeah, I'm not gonna have these. Sniff, sniff. If you do a loaf of bread, the core, when it's properly cooked, the core of the loaf straight out of the oven is where a lot of the moisture is gonna be hanging out. So if you cut into your bread right out of the oven, if it's a big loaf, you're gonna have this like log of dense, and it almost seems like it's raw dough in the middle. It seems that way because it's just wet. And if you let it cool down, that moisture disperses through the loaf. And then when you cut into the bread, once that moisture is dispersed, you don't get as many crumbs from the edge, or especially from the crust, as you do when you cut into it at first. Now in smaller things like breadsticks and small buns like this, you can cut into them basically right out of the oven because you don't have that dense core of like wet dough in the middle. So this I can serve right now and someone's going to be really happy. Yeah. Yum, 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 yum. So yeah, small buns you can serve straight out of the oven. Loaves, let them come down to room temperature. So close to being done. You know what? I think right at 6:59 and a few seconds, I'm going to show you what the bacon wrapped asparagus and the bacon weave look like, and then I'm going to pack it up and Sudeep can take over. You're ready to go, Sudeep? I assume you're ready to go. I hope you're ready to go. I'm going to hydrate. As far as cost savings goes, I can't compete with my local bakery for making bread. I just can't. My local grocery store, their bakery, nothing wrong with it. My local bakeries, they're all fantastic. I have nothing but wonderful things to say about all of the local bakeries. And because they have the specialized production equipment and they get stuff at commercial prices, I just can't compete with it because their margins are so slim. If it was something like pastries or desserts, that's completely different because there's real markup there, because there's real labor that goes into it. But something like a loaf of bread or a big batch of loaves of bread where you pour bags of stuff and gallons of stuff and cups of stuff into your giant mixer and you hit start, the big expensive machine kneads up the dough for 15 minutes and does all that manual labor for, you know, the cost of the equipment and financing and servicing it. I can't compete with that. But my place smells awesome, so there is that trade-off. And I don't have to go outside because the outside world is really scary and cold. It's actually not that cold today. It's only like minus 20 Celsius, so minus 5 Fahrenheit, give or take. Okay, Sudeep is ready. I'm going to just show you what these look like because they are basically, yeah, these are basically done. I'm going to give them another 2 minutes. Bacon weave, nice and weavy. We got our bacon wrapped asparagus. They need just a little more temperature. I want them to look more like this. But here we go. Here we go. I'm gonna leave it in for another 5 quick minutes. Casper's Cloud. Ugh. Oh, you can't have potato starch either. Yikes. Yeah. Like I know cornstarch is one of the. Because I was gonna suggest chaffles, but you can't do that either. Wow. Well, I guess you could do cloud bread, which is just egg whites. But thank you everyone for tuning in. Hang tight, Sudeep's going to take over. Please be kind. Tip your staff. Make sure you're all subscribed to MyLiveTube. And keep Mars Persalot in the catnip. Love you guys. Again, stay safe, be good. And if you have questions for me, hop on the Discord. I'm happy to answer basically any question. Even if it's a little on the edge, send me a message on Discord and I'll let you know if I'll answer it on the AMA. Be good.
Bye.
Bye. Opa.